at the hearing, our case before the panel was that it should not be more than 20%. They've recommended 30%, and they have said that you need agreed tree management plan. The trouble with that is that introduces an area of discretion into permitted activity, because the assessment of a tree management plan would not be a black and white thing. So we're recommending that you have to delete the requirement for agreed tree management plan, otherwise it would not be a permitted activity. So we support the permitted threshold that they've recommended, which is the 30%, under supervision of a suitably qualified arborist. What we can't support is the requirement for agreed tree management plan, because that shifts it out of the permitted activity status. So these are for trees that are not protected scheduled trees. These are just street trees and trees on open space areas.
So can I ask, can I just have a look at that? I mean, in the rural area, this is one of the issues that we have. You know, a lot of our trees are what causes power outages and things, you know, on the streetscape, obviously. So can you just take me through? I'm sorry, my head's not in a really good state.
No, that's fine. I'm probably going a little bit fast. So what is being recommended by the panel is that if you're trimming a street tree or a tree on open space, that's up to removing 30% of the live growth of that tree as a permitted activity if it's under the supervision of an arborist, which is usually what it is under. But they've also required an agreed tree management plan, which brings an element of discretion, because there could be disagreement about the tree management plan. You can't have a permitted activity with an area of discretion, so we're recommending you should not be required to do a tree management plan as a permitted activity, but you can remove up to 30% of the live growth of a tree in the street or open space zones, as long as it's being supervised by an arborist.
Tell that to somebody out the back of Tomarata.
Yep.
What do you think?
Tomarata.
Can I just ask my
visions for emergencies,
rural,
I think.
can I ask my other rural colleague what he thinks about that?
Oh, he's looking.
I'm just asking if there's provisions for emergency situations such as power, road blockages and so forth. There is, from memory, I think.
So we have so there are provisions to remove limbs and trees under emergency situation. This is just when you are trimming trees, and it is only for street trees and trees on open space zones. It's not about what you can trim on your property.
Yeah, or the road corridor.
Right, Councillor
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to move this bundle of recommendations, and I'll put them under the clause of electric vehicles and bus lanes, in terms of we do need to have common sense, and I think that these all have a strong measure in terms of the staff's rejection of common sense. Thank you.
Right, any further discussions?
We haven't finished them yet.
Oh, haven't we?
No.
Why don't you have a glass of, just have a drink first of all.
Have a glass of gin.
Not yet, it's not, the sun's not over the yard.
Okay, so
Well over there.
the next issue is that they have recommended extending standards around vegetation removal where a road goes into an SEA. So we have no issue about the rules of the SEA applying outside of the road corridor, but once it's within the road corridor, putting additional standards on the ongoing maintenance and operation of roads, we do not believe that's an appropriate management strategy, because roads that run through SEAs need to be maintained, repaired and renewed. So we do not support the recommendation of the panel on that matter. The next issue is to do with where they have recommended the inclusion of standards related to earthworks. It's really about filling within a floodplain associated with the roadworks. They're now putting, our position was that road network activities, those that are required to maintain existing roads should be exempt from the rules around earthworks within floodplains, because quite often the road acts as a conduit for floodwaters, and we do not want to prevent that happening. So our recommendation is that we should reject that position of the panel. Similarly, if you look at M, which is also about the standards to do with overflow paths associated with roadworks, we don't believe that it's appropriate that the general activity of looking after roads should be subject to the same standards as other activities in terms of earthworks and filling. And also there was an issue around the limitation of earthworks within overlays for what road network activities. That would actually require a consent every time a resealing of a road occurred. And once again, we think that was putting an onerous consenting process on the operation of roads across Auckland where they were in overlays. So that completes all of the both acceptance and rejection.
Does your extension, who was the mover?
I was happy to move all
Do
those.
you want to move all of them?
Yeah, I'm happy to move all of them. They are in a. as a
And Kathy,
package.
you want to move some of them?
No, I just wanted to ask a question. No, make a statement, really.
Right.
That means that Auckland Transport can spray glyphosate through a significant ecological area at the side of the roads. That's what we're saying.
Okay, we're in the middle of a weeds discussion.
So that would be to do with air discharge controls. That what we're talking here is specifically to do with the rules around stormwater and earthworks within floodplains.
I'm back, I'm further up.
Sorry?
Just
It's on the
one
trees.
before. Just the one before, because you went straight on to the next one without stopping.
So which one are you on, Councillor Casey?
Significant ecological areas, the panel recommendations.
So this is to do with clearance along the road. If they were doing spraying, then they would have to follow the discharge provisions around
Whatever the policy was.
whatever that policy is.
Kathy's referring to K.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we just stop just briefly after each one, because it'd be easier
Alright.
to ask it before you fly on. Extending standards on vegetation, we're saying that Auckland Transport can just go straight on through with the roads because they need to do it, and I'm saying, well, the implications of that are...
So we are going back to what was council's case that the Auckland Development Committee had signed off. We are going back to the council's case before the hearings, which if sprays are being used, there is another mechanism to manage those.
But isn't this the right place for it? We should be saying to Auckland Transport, when you go through
No,
a
no,
significant
that's a
ecological
policy
area...
discussion we're having right now, and this is actually to do with the sort of the organisational framework. All of this stuff is not to do with whether or not we will spray with glyphosate or otherwise. This is actually to do with the type of policy relating to where and how we can. That's my understanding. You don't have a glyphosate debate in the middle of a unitary plan.
But maintain, repair and renew doesn't include spraying
Yeah, but that'll be
berms,
on the basis of the policy that we've agreed, and we haven't even agreed a policy. We're in the middle of the debate on it.
Having a review of the policy,
That's right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So Kathy, this is not to do with whether or not we're spraying glyphosate.
Glyphosate.
We've got
Roundup,
so many
Roundup.
other things to debate
I
rather than
call it Roundup.
glyphosate today.
I call it Roundup.
I wasn't debating, I was clarifying.
Linda,
No clarifying.
I'll leave it, but I mean, the reality is, sometimes when you've got a tree branch right across a country road and it's the only way to get in and out of where you live, you have to cut it. And that's a reality, because it's a road. So, for me, this is really sensible.
okay,
Right? You get to the point you can't move out of your community.
right,
in a
now I
truck.
know there's quite a wad of recommendations there, but I'm just reminding you that these are technical recommendations. To that extent, these generally would reflect back on where we were and the fact that we've applied our organisational common sense in an area where maybe the panel hasn't quite got it right. right? So unless you've got
Actually, it worked.
a technical view yourself,
Funny enough, yeah.
I think it's best just to accept organisation logics applying here. Councillor Kenny W.
Yes, Penny, the way I read it, this just makes it a lot easier for Auckland Transport to get on with what they have to get on with, particularly in rural areas.
What this does is take us back to council's case at the hearings, which was the result of discussions with the Auckland Development Committee after reading submissions, but also it was the council family approach to dealing with the management of roads that was in the notified plan. So we're not going further than what was always in the notified version of the plan at our case at the hearings. Our recommendations are taking us back to that position.
So can you just explain to me, I mean, why did the panel make so many changes? I mean, was this the result of submissions or?
I think as we've talked about earlier in this meeting is that not only did the panel recommend changes to the content of the district plan, it did restructure certain sections. And so where we had rules throughout the overlays to do with infrastructure and network utilities and roading, they have pulled them across to one section of the plan, but in doing that, we
Miss things
suspect
out.
some things have fallen out, but
Yep.
as John has said, we can't presume that, we have to reject them because we can't second guess that this was either intentional or not intentional, but it looks as though some of the things just sort of dropped away.
So, I mean, through you, Mr Chair, I mean, these aren't things that anyone's likely to sort of appeal against because we've rejected them. I mean, there's quite a few.
Yeah.
Ease of operation.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
Okay, so look, we've got it moved and seconded, and so I'm just going to put it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Right, the second to last topic for today. Oh, we'll do the wrap up. I'll move the wrap up. Seconder, Councillor Denise. All those in favour say aye. Against passed. Second to last topic is transport.